Deutsche Welle Radio. Religion and Society.
Hello and welcome to the program in Bonn am Angelika-Ditscheid. Most Germans are Christians. 50 out of 80 million people are either Catholics or Protestants. Most of the very few Hindus or Buddhists in Germany have immigrated from countries such as India, Sri Lanka, Vietnam or Thailand. But many Germans are very interested in these so-called Eastern religions, especially in Buddhism.
Deutsche Welle Radio. Inspired Minds.
Hello and a very warm welcome to this edition of Inspired Minds. I'm Brendan O'Shea. Today we meet author Matthew Sharp.
The first discovery had been, of course, the depression for which the Prozac was meant to be the cure. A discovery made not by Bernard Schwartz, but by his son, Chris. Chris figured it out first because that was how things worked in this family, such as it was. Soul of son and soul of dad were linked by analogy. No tic or mood swing in the one did not go unrepresented in the susceptible equipment of the other.
I think there are previous generations of writers that have also done this. I mean, I think J.D. Salinger, in a sense, was writing about this in the 1950s, and even in the South, William Faulkner was writing about this in the 1920s and 1930s. But yeah, I think, the Franzen and Eugenides are enormously popular in the States as well, and I think it's because they are touching a nerve that a lot of people are, responding to this question of, what happens now to the family.
Well, I also see a similarity in your book with Jonathan Letham's Fortress of Solitude. In both cases, the young people are left astrand on their own, I suppose that's the big issue that you're addressing as well, that there are so many ways that the society can harbor children and give them support. It doesn't have to be mum and dad. It can be all sorts of other people.
Yeah, I regret to admit that I haven't read Fortress of Solitude yet, but Jonathan Lethem is really one of my favorite contemporary American writers. I've read just about everything else of his, and I admire him, and so I'll have to make up for that when I get back to New York. Yeah, but the question about children being abandoned or children being left to fend for themselves, I think is very much was very much on my mind when I was writing The Sleeping Father or Eine amerikanische Familie, and I think the title in English, The Sleeping Father, has the sense of not just a father who is literally sleeping, but also the sense of the abdication of authority, that the generation that is meant to be the steward of the younger generation is in some way not doing the job adequately. And one of the reasons, to get back to my other theme, antidepressants, is that I think people, instead of turning to other people to cope with suffering, to cope with difficulties of life, instead turn to products. One of those products being antidepressant medications, but all kinds of products. Maybe just you buy a nice car, or you go shopping for clothes. I think people more and more are putting their trust in commodities instead of in each other, ceding some of the authority that should belong to humans, or maybe to God. I don't know. That's also one of the themes of the book. And in fact, the first line of my novel in English is modeled on the first line of the English translation of the trial, Der Prozess. I think it's a very dangerous model. And I think it's very destructive to, in a sense, to the father-son relationship, or to the idea of what it is to be a man.
So, Matthew Sharp, you should be enjoying your success, because that also tells us that Americans are not like George Bush.
You mean because George Bush would never read my book? I don't think he reads anything. But although, this is interesting, his wife, Laura Bush, used to be a librarian, and apparently her favorite scene in all of literature is the Grand Inquisitor scene in The Brothers Karamazov.
From Deutsche Welle Radio, Kids in Germany.